This is the best interview I've ever had, and I'm Mark Rakogo. Thanks for listening. I've been sharing a few special moments from several really incredible interviews I've had over the last 10 years. Here's one of them. Rakugo is the Japanese art of comic storytelling, with stories that have been passed down from master to apprentice. This art form has 800 current masters, but what makes Katsura Sunshine special at the time of this 2020 interview is his standing as the only non-Japanese master. This Canadian traditional Japanese Rakugo comic storyteller, theater producer, and television personality who's performed Rakugo on Broadway and in London's West End shares the fastest Rakugo story you'll ever hear, reveals why he always gets compared to vaudeville performers, and how a complicated set of rules keeps the art form both easy to understand for the audience and funny. How do you make sure to connect with, let's say, an American audience using a Japanese art form? Staying true to the Japanese art form while connecting with how Americans might approach humor a little differently, because even American versus British humor is a little different.
Yeah,
how do you
absolutely.
think about that?
As a Canadian, when I was living in London for a couple of years,
and being a Canadian on top of that,
on top of that, right? Well, we're kind of straddling, the UK and the US. I think that the comedy you do and the comedy you appreciate are two different things. However,
well, that's interesting.
However, I would say, like, as a Canadian in London, when I went to see stand-up comedians in London, 1/3, even though it's the same English language, 1/3 of what they were saying, I had no idea what was funny about it. And my British friends would say, "Oh, well, you would have to know this textbook that was in our whatever grade 2 something classes, and then he's referring to that TV show that was, you'd have to be basically brought up here." And those comedians would get rid of that humor the second they leave London, right? Then when they come to the States and perform, they know that stuff's not going to work.
Right.
So there's the barrier there is not even, there's not even a language barrier, right? That's completely a contextual barrier, as you say. Now, the flip side of the coin is Rakugo, a storytelling, it's very rare to have a humoristic storytelling tradition that could be translated and cross borders and languages and cultures like this. It is completely universal. I'm not touching it. Except for translated, I'm not touching it. And I think the reason why you're able to do this is because the stories originated 300 years ago. And 300 years ago, Japan was very different than it was today. These are very simple stories of just basic human relationships and that kind of thing that have transcended the ages, and so therefore very easy to translate and kind of work for. Why don't I do a 15-second story? You'll see how it works.
All right, here we go.
Yes.
It's going to be one of the shortest Rakugo stories on record. This is 2 ladies in old Edo, Japan, gossiping in the neighborhood in front of the house. Did you hear? Mrs. Takahashi down the street fell down on her face, and her face became completely disfigured. Oh, really? That's too bad. Yes. But the doctor is amazing. He managed to put her face right back to the way it was before. Oh, really? That's too bad.
So I have a question about that. That was very funny and well done. And to me, that sounds like almost vaudeville stand-up.
Now, when that's a very, very short story. When that story is extended to 10 minutes, 15 minutes, the punchline comes. Then I have a lot of people saying that's a lot like the Jewish Shaggy Dog stories. That gets compared to that a lot by my patrons after the show. So, but that comparison that you just made, a lot of people have said that too as well. It's very, very simple. It's very clean humor.
Yeah.
Like people bring their families to Rakugo shows in Japan. Yeah. It's very.
So are there certain markers you have to sort of hit that keep it traditional?
Yeah. There's a lot of rules. For instance, when I'm looking left and when I'm looking right, there are a lot of rules even with that. Whether the speaker is hierarchically higher or lower in status, or if you're knocking on the door, there's a lot of scenes where someone knocks on the door and says, hello, anybody home? I said, oh, it's you. Come on in, right? You always look left when you're knocking on the door. You always look right when you're opening the door and welcoming your guest in. And this goes back to the shape of a Japanese traditional kabuki theater, where they have what's called the flower road, the hanamichi, the flower road, which comes from stage right or the left part of the audience, and it so comes out to the stage from that direction. So to be opening the door, the traveler's always coming from there. So to be opening the door on the opposite side of the stage would just feel weird to Japanese audiences. Even though our theaters don't have that, we retain those rules. There's tons of rules, but all the rules are very complicated for the storyteller to remember. But they're the absolute final goal of each and every one of these rules is to make it easy to understand for the audience. And it's absolutely, there's not one rule that doesn't make sense in terms of, because it's one performer playing 2 characters or 3 characters.
Yes.
It's got to be simple and very easy for the audience to understand so that the humor comes out.
I'll be back soon with another remarkable interview moment. Please be sure and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you find your best podcasts so you don't miss a moment. And you can follow the show on Instagram and Facebook at Best Interview Pod and Twitter at Listen Subscribe. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you soon.